want you to listen with your heart, which means that today, what I would like for us to do is to allow the message to really sink beyond here. And today, what I want to be able to share with you is just something that I really feel like God has really put on my heart. And I want to ask a few questions to open this up. But I also tell you that this talk comes with a little warning label. Is that all right? A little warning label. The warning label is simply this. This will be a little bit less traditional. Meaning I'm not going to talk the whole time. I'm going to speak on a few things that really been put on my heart to share with men this morning. I'm going way off of what I had originally thought I was going to talk about because I just feel like something is pressing that I want to share with you today. So it'll be a little less traditional. Also, I'm just going to share with what I know. I'm not that deep in theology. I know what I know, and most of the stuff is because I lived it. Sometimes they say the hard lessons are the best ways to learn. Is that right? Amen. At least that's what I've been taught. Now, I don't subscribe or prescribe that. I don't want you to go out and do it that way. But if you have, I believe that we all have a story to share. And I do also know that nobody came in here on a coincidence. The God I serve doesn't serve one of coincidences. Everybody's moment has been ordained here. So if you think you just came for breakfast today to have a good talk and build some community, that's a piece of it. But I also know that there's something specifically for you today, not because of my words, but because you invested your time. Now, some of us may have invested time because you're like, I don't want to get started on my to-do list already. I've been out of town for a week. Believe me, mine is stacking. I just drove back from Jacksonville from a gig last night. It's stacking. It's getting tall by the second. Maybe it was for the bacon, so thank you, bacon guy, but also thank you for attending Faith Church, where I attend here in Somerville. But the questions I want to ask is this. So if you fall inside of these categories, raise your hand for me. I just want to get a feel for who's in the room today. If you are married, raise your hand. Okay. If you are single, raise your hand. Okay. Widow. Okay. Thank you for raising your hand. If you have children that are grown and out of the house, raise your hand. All right. If you have children who are in the house that think they run the house, okay. All right. Got a few honest hands in there. Last question that I'll ask you is simply this. Let me ask you this as well. How many of you have ever know that you needed to do something, known that you needed to take responsibility or ownership of something, but you kind of delayed it, or you put it off, or you just said that can wait for later? Anybody in? Okay, we got good company today. That's good, because what I want to talk about today is this exact idea around, like, if we continue, let me say it a different way. You cannot win what you refuse to take ownership of. I'm going to say it again. You cannot win what you refuse to take ownership of. And so often it can be in the silliest small things. I'll give you a perfect example from yesterday. We were driving back from Jacksonville. I knew that I needed to prepare for this morning. We picked up some Mexican food before we got to the house, so my wife didn't have to cook. I'm trying to win in every area of life, okay? And I was like, we'll pick up dinner. And so we picked up dinner. And I started eating my chips and cheese and the fajitas and all the good staples from the Mexican restaurant, right? And I started dribbling a little bit. You know what I mean? Anybody make a little mess when you're eating every now and then? I look over the paper towel roll. You ever seen the paper towel roll just have one sheet? I was like, I try to use everything but that paper towel, because what happens if I use the last paper towel? Gotta replace it. I was over here wiping my chin with my shirt, the dishcloth on the side of the sink, and I called myself in the moment asking, why are you refusing to just go get the paper towel that you need? Why? Because it was going to require an extra step to replace it. Now, I will tell you, I can proudly tell you that I did finally just get over myself and go and switch it out and stop looking ridiculous, because in a minute my wife was going to catch me. But it made me realize in the moment of how many times in life we will see the smallest thing and we'll refuse to take ownership. I love that you shared that, I had all these years in military and in civilian life, and why would I not just take the leadership? Why would I not do the training? And it comes in so many different shapes of leadership inside of a group, or leadership in your community, or at home, in your organization. We see this happening so often where the smallest little thing will refuse to take ownership. And I say that because when something goes wrong, let me ask you this. What's your first response typically? May blame somebody else. We try to deflect. What else?
Panic. Frustration.
Frustration, what did you say?
Panic.
Panic, depending on what it is, right? Say it again.
Start the correction.
Start the correction. Thank you. You get 2 points, all right? That's a great answer, right? Start the correction. But so often, if we're being honest, like what happens in our initial response until we develop the skill of owning our response is that we'll find ourselves in a situation to where we're deflecting, we're blaming, we're waiting and hoping. Have you ever waited and hoped that something would get better, but it never gets better? And the same is true when we take a look at this inside of our own lives and our walks in our faith, our walks as husbands, as I saw the hands go up, as grandfathers, as fathers, and just the leaders of our community as the male species that we have been called to lead and do the things that we've been instructed to do. And so if we sometimes respond with like, that's not my fault, I mean, again, I laugh at the simplest things like a paper towel. Like, I'm not about to use that last one. Your order's wrong, and we push the blame off somewhere else. And it may not be my fault, but it is always my response. I'm going to say it again. It may not be my fault, but it is always my response. And see, the beauty about what we have in life is that bricks can build. I can take these bricks here and I could stack them one upon another. And any construction folks in the house? Okay, you could explain this way better than I. All right, so I'm not going to try to get too detailed. I had to check my crowd first. But the fact is that anybody in here would know that I could use this brick to build. But I could also take this exact same brick and sling it at this window, and then what's going to happen? It's going to break. So the ownership that we have to take in life, the number one that we have to do is how we respond is either going to build or it's going to break. Every day that we have an opportunity to build or to break with how we own our response. Because blaming never builds. Blaming only breaks. But taking ownership of our response is how we can build the life that we not only desire, but what God has for us as well. I look at this when Joseph, the story of Joseph, if you're familiar with it in Genesis, where you want to talk about somebody who knew how to own their response. He did. I mean, here you have a guy who was betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery. He ends up at Potiphar's house, and what happens there? He's doing everything that he's supposed to be doing. If you know the story, Potiphar's wife lies on him, accuses him of something, and then what happens to Joseph? He gets thrown into prison. And see, any moment, if we were to talk to him today, if he were to say like, well, it wasn't my fault. And he could have continued to play the victim game, but what did Joseph do? He stayed faithful. And every response, he continued to do what? To build. And I think that that's the challenge for us today when we think about our own lives of, like every moment we have an opportunity to respond. Because blame is what will keep us stuck, but it's our response that'll move us forward. I want you to think about a situation or a moment right now where you may feel a little stuck. And I don't know what it may be, if it's finances, if it's job, if it's a project, if it's a vacation, whatever it is that where you may feel stuck in this moment. I would ask you, is there a gap between what needs to happen and what you've actually taken action on? Because when I reflect over the gaps that I have of where I may feel stuck, if it's, you know what, I feel like I haven't been growing in my faith, well, what do I need to do? I probably need to take ownership of how much I'm reading, how much I'm being disciplined and building a band of brothers, the community that we build with one another. The old statement says that life is 10% of what happens to you and 90% of how you choose to respond. Like we all are going to go through stuff. Is that fair? Everybody in here human? Okay, just checking. They've been making some good looking robots lately, so I just want to make sure everybody's good, human. If you're human, then you know that life is going to happen to you. And the way that I like to say to the book is simply this, that you can't choose what happens to you, but that you can always choose what grows from it. If you think about a sidewalk, have you ever seen a flower growing out of a sidewalk? I have. And maybe you have as well. And what it reminded me is that one time that was just pure dirt, and then the concrete and the asphalt went on top of it. But even in the midst of the crack, the flower still found the opportunity to grow, because that's what our response will allow us to do. Will we grow, or will we continue to stay stuck? If you have a piece of paper or you're taking notes, I want you to write this word down. You can do it in your phone as well. And this is a word that, honestly, as I started to give this talk, I've given this talk only once before, and it came up. I really feel like the Holy Spirit was like, hey, this was what you need to share in addition to this. We talk a lot about the word. You can type it into your phone. You can put it on your piece of paper. Type out the word responsibility. And cheat off your neighbor if you don't know how to spell it, all right? Don't ask me, because I don't, all right? But the word responsibility, what word do you see in the word responsibility? Which then triggered the thought that it is our responsibility to choose the response that builds versus breaks. It is our responsibility, or some would say it is your ability to respond that is your responsibility. How we respond to the things in life is really what will help us go to the next level or be stuck of where we are. So here's what I'm going to ask you to do. At your table, I'm going to ask you just to think on this for just a moment. Where is there an area where you may feel stuck? You may feel like, hey, I'm blaming a little bit for just being real and authentic inside of this room. I heard you say that what happens here stays here. You know, it's a safe space, safe place. But think about and reflect for just a moment. Like, is there an area of your life currently where you may feel stuck, or you may be blaming, and you know it's time to take ownership? That could be your health. That could be how you are or not maybe witnessing to somebody when you're at work. Maybe how I've wanted to join one of these, but I just haven't taken the next step, or whatever the case may be. You know it better than I do. And so at the table, and matter of fact, I'm not going to do full table. Let's do half table. So kind of talking threes, because if you get 6, 7 of you, one of you will stay quiet, and one of you will dominate the conversation. So for like 60 seconds to maybe 2 minutes total, I want you in threes, if you will, talk about an area where you may feel stuck and you've been blaming, and now it's an opportunity for you to own your response moving forward. Take 60 seconds to share on what it is that you said you feel a little stuck, maybe needing to own that response of what's next. Anybody willing?
I'll go.
All right.
Just for like today, and like looking at, like, this is my first time coming to an event, and so just my immediate response, head off the pillow, was like, no, I don't feel like going. Even though I signed up 2 weeks ago, it's like, no, I need more sleep. I don't want to go. I'm not in a good mood. I don't want to do it. And then my wife's just like, well, that's probably a good indicator that you do need to go. And then I'm up and moving, right?
Right again.
Yeah. It was just it's like that thing of like, man, I'm looking for a community. I'm looking for that band of brothers. I'm looking for that inspiration, to that moment of inspiration. And then it comes, it's like, oh no, I've got all these excuses that I want to throw in the way of it, you know?
Yeah.
And so just having the partner there just to kind of cut through that, you know?
Yeah.
The way she does, and right to the quick, you know? And it's like all of a sudden I'm here, so.
I love it. What's your name?
Scott.
Can we give Scott a round of applause? That's awesome. Scott, they typically have better speakers. Okay, since this is your first time, all right? Speakers are typically up a few grades, all right? So don't judge them off of me today. I love that you said that, because it's probably a great indicator. And here's where I tell people all the time, when I'm speaking, especially in the corporate, or as you use the term, the secular space, like, one of the things that I'll tell you is that the gap that you typically need to take ownership of the response at work, specifically when I'm speaking to them, and maybe this is for somebody as well, is that the gap that you typically need to own is the one that you probably complain about the most.
Yeah.
And so what we do is like, hey, I'm waiting for somebody else to do this, and the fact that she used the terms, that's probably a good indicator, right? Like, your indicator light's on, and aren't you thankful for a good wife that can discern and also speak to you directly, right, Scott? That's awesome. And so, yeah, exactly. So if the first response is, if the first brick is the response, then the second brick that I want to help us build upon today is just simply the one around our mindset. The mindset of why and how we think all the time. Help me to complete the statement if you've ever heard the statement before. It is what it is. I mean, we use that term like it's some type of wisdom. Like, you know what I mean? Like, we don't get the opportunity. We're like, well, is what it is. Something didn't go the way the vacation and everything was planned, and we'll just say it is what it is. And so we'll use it sometimes, but if you really think about the situations where you use it, and now my friends like catch themselves because they know what's coming next. Because you can't say it is what it is around me. It even hurts me to say it that many times. Because sometimes when we say it, it's almost like this laissez-faire, like hands-off approach, like, well, it is what it is. Let it do what it's supposed to do. But instead of saying it is what it is, I want you to begin to say it this way. It is what I make it. It is what I make it. Now, I'm not here to say that we are playing the role of God. That is not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that with His help, we can make it and turn it into anything for the good. No matter what it is that comes our way. And so every single time that we think about saying it is what it, we're going to start saying it is what I make it. Because that's the response. That's the brick of the mindset that we can either build or break. If you look again back to Joseph's example in Genesis, Joseph was thrown into a prison, but yet he still had the same mindset that God was still with him. He still carried the mindset that everywhere he goes, I'm still going to serve. I'm still going to do it with integrity. I'm still going to be the man of my word and the man of my action. Every single day, Joseph still did it everywhere he went. Same man, same mindset. Different environments. And so we've heard many different illustrations about not allowing the environment to change you. And you've probably heard the statement before that you're a product of your environment. And I think that's false too. I think our environment shapes you, but I don't think you're a product of your environment. If you're a product of your environment, explain to me how 5 people can come out of the same household, 3 go off and do great things and 2 don't. You're not a product of your environment, you're a product of your choices. You reap what you sow. Exactly right. And so we cannot cast off the responsibility to say that I'm just a product of my environment when really I have to own the brick of the mindset that says I'm a product of my choices, just as the word says, do not be deceived, God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. And so when we look at Joseph being in different environments, the same mindset, I don't know about you, but have you ever had a moment where you realized that you were giving up a little bit? You ever had that moment before? You don't have to say it out loud. I'm not going to make you loud yourself out. I'll do it for myself, all right? And so when we're in these moments of like giving up, I think about these instances like, I'll never forget in 2021, I knew God had called me after doing some praying and fasting, after seeking wise counseling, after counting the cost, very biblically based of how I left my 9 to 5. But I'm going to tell you this, gentlemen, inside of the room, I thought I had faith until I cut off my direct deposit. I was like, whoa, this is a different level of faith here. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know why I thought I was doing it before, but it really made me trust it on that second. And then when I took off from my 9 to 5 and started to speak full time, I didn't feel like I didn't understand the business. And so the gigs weren't coming in the way that I thought they were. And the doubt started to creep in. And I started to just say, well, you know what? It is what it is. And every time I said it, I was giving up on what the possibilities of what God was trying to do through me and for me. But you see, faith says it is what I make it because the God in me is greater than the situation around me. The idea that I can just say, well, it is what it is, as if He's not trying to teach me something through it, is not allowing His promises to really be fulfilled in the sense that He has a plan, He has a purpose for what we are going through, no matter what it is, whether we've just moved here, whether we're just trying to get involved, or whatever the case may be. And so in those moments of doubting, I couldn't just say it is what I make it and start to just like tell you that was just like sprinkling confetti on top of me and everything got magically better like Disney. But that continued faith of like God continue to show me it is what we make it. It is what you help me get through these opportunities. And lo and behold, here I still am 5+ years later, still being able to do it, not because of my own power, but because of what He has ordained for me. And so we have The right response builds the foundation. Then we have the mindset. And then we have the final piece of today's talk, which is the third piece of what I want you to take ownership of. Because here's what I can tell you is that life doesn't wait for us to be ready.
That's right.
Life doesn't wait for us to be ready. And so the third brick that we're going to be ready and we're going to build with it, or we're either going to break because we're not ready. I don't know about you, but I've had some opportunities in life where I wasn't ready to build. And because I wasn't ready, it began to break what ultimately, again, God had in store for me. Because opportunities, pressure, responsibility, all these things will just show up when we least expect it. And it's up to us to be ready in the sense of how we position ourselves, how we position our home. I'll never forget my sophomore year. Anybody from the upstate South Carolina in the house? Why'd you make that face? They made a face like, I would never, who would live there? Like, dang, no, that bacon bad? What's up? You know? Just kidding. So I grew up in Union, South Carolina, the big metropolis of Union. And don't laugh, sir. I'm lying. It is not a metropolis. It's built off the backs of the old textile industries. But anyways, that's where I was born and raised. I played football there. My sophomore year, I was on the varsity squad. We were in the upper state championship going up against Daniel High School. Daniel at the time were the best of the best. It was always us and Daniel every single year. And I was the backup quarterback. And it was the upper state game. I had played zero unless we were getting blown out. I mean, then I would get put in and do a little bit of playing time. And so, to be quite honest between me and you, I wasn't really ready. I wasn't really mentally going through the snaps in my head. I wasn't really thinking about that in this upper state championship game at Daniel High School that I was really going to play. And about 2 minutes before the first half ends, the starting quarterback goes down. And boy, when I tell you I was nervous, I was so nervous I could barely hold myself together. I don't know if my helmet was on forwards or backwards. I was scared to death in a lot of ways. And the coaches must have known it without me having to say a word, because as soon as I went in, we did 3 straight plays. First play, handoff. Second play, handoff. I said, third play? We get to air it out? Right, coach? Yeah, air it out on a sweet toss. Left side. The coaches must have known that I wasn't ready, because I promise you I wasn't ready. Now, thankfully, we lost the game, but the quarterback made a halftime, resurgence. He came back and at least gave us a fighting chance. But what it reminded me in that moment is that everybody around me knew I wasn't ready. Now, had the coaches had the confidence in me, I think we would have called different plays. The question that I'll have or ask you today, gentlemen, are the people around you saying that you're ready? Are you ready? Are you ready for whatever is that is to be, that you know that you're supposed to do as the man, as the leader? Because sometimes people will only bring us the opportunities because they see that we're not ready, and so they'll keep it simple for us. And sometimes we're looking for more, but we have to ask ourselves, are we in that level of preparation? Again, to go back to Joseph, to point back to the story of Joseph inside of Genesis, he was ready, so when King Pharaoh called him, he was already ready. King Pharaoh got word of what he was doing in the prisons while he was still serving, while he was still faithful, while he still was owning his response, his mindset. Joseph was always building with his bricks of readiness, his mindset and his response. And the same is true for what we do every day. I'm going to finish here with this final story, because when I tell you that, what I know is that some of us may be in that proverbial pit right now. So, some of us may be on the mountaintop of life is looking good and things are going great for us. But I think also like some of us may feel forgotten. Some of us may feel like we're a little bit anxious, a little bit isolated. And even, I'll be honest, I had a stark reality. I think I shared this with you, Warren, when I went to the men's conference. If we're not careful, we will insulate ourselves with success. Now, I do believe in the whole statement that you are the product of the 5 people that are around you. But what I mean by insulate ourselves with success is that we'll lose the perspective of what the real world is struggling with. You get around I got a pastor buddy who also owns a successful business as well, in addition to faithful guy, great husband, great father. And I'll look at these things and I'm like, well, he must not be struggling with anything. And then I get to the next friend of mine who's doing well for Bowen and, in the armed services and doing great things. And what I forget about is that sometimes people are broken and hurting. And so when I came to the men's conference, I was thinking about the men who were in my circle who, may struggle, but not like some of the people that were there. And so I say this because I know that some people may be going through stuff. Some people may be questioning, like, God, where are you through this current storm? I know this because I had the great opportunity to go and play college football. I went on to play ball, but because of my choices, because of not responding when life happens, because you see, a man or a woman is never defeated until they place the blame on somebody else. I used to blame the coaches for leaving, of why I dropped out of school. I used to blame my dad for leaving, of why I went on a 16-year addiction downward spiral in life. I blamed everybody, but you see, I told you that until we own our response and the mindset and truly get ourselves ready, we're only breaking, we're not building. And it took me until the age of 34, roughly 10 years ago, to really own my response. But here's what I can tell you, no matter where you are in your life, no matter what, if you've been a believer for years, not a believer, or whatever, wherever you fall inside of the spectrum, I can promise you that God redeems those who respond. He's ready when we are ready. That's why He gives us the power of choice. And so, gentlemen, what I would encourage you to do today as we finish up the talk, I just want to thank you for your time and attention first and foremost, for all that you have done to engage at your tables. But I want you to know that you are not a product of your environment, but you're a product of your choices. The seeds you sow and the bricks you use to build, not to break, will ultimately put us in a position and in a place to not only be able to better serve our families, the men that are around us, whether it's at the fire pit or in the homes or at Panera, wherever you may be, to be able to serve, because what I do know is this, is that without community, we're left alone on an island, and I promise you that is the perfect perching ground for the enemy who wants to rob and divide and take away everything that God has inside of your life. Stay strong, stay together, always own your response, your mindset, and your readiness. Thank you, Warren, for this opportunity. Appreciate you, gentlemen, for your attention.